What's up, everybody? Welcome back to TA Media. Again, we are here with kind of, not news or nothing like that, but, this is kind of, I have to get this out there. The originals series finale Backlash. I still plan to make another video and, kind of reviewing the series finale as where it lands as a series finale as a whole and where the originals takes its place in TV history. It's kind of hard I'm trying to get to that, but this is just about the reactions and the backlash that really isn't deserved as much as you think. Once again, I'm not on the side of the originals was a super terrible series finale. I do understand people's gripes with a lot of the characters and a lot of the choices and kind of with season 5 as a whole. I understand. I myself don't like, Hope getting pretty much 75% of the spotlight in the final season of a show where, she wasn't a huge character in most of it. She was a big plot point in certain parts, but she wasn't a main fixture, within the cast and stuff. And, the series finale itself is all about Klaus, whether people like it or not. He's finally front and center almost the entire episode. I also understand people's gripes with Elijah, and I have gripes myself, with Marcel regarding the final season and all that, and I have frustrations of my own, but what the show was basically Klaus's redemption story. I don't think in the end he was, fully redeemed. I don't think there is a full redemption in the Vampire Diaries universe. It's hard to say. You can't really save the world in the Vampire Diaries. It's not like Buffy and Angel's universe where there was an apocalypse, every year. The Vampire Diaries, had their troubles in their whole town. Like at the end of the series, Stefan Salvatore is he's pretty much redeemed in my eyes. He sacrificed himself for not even the whole town, but for Elena and his brother and everybody that was going to get caught in that fire, and to finally put down Catherine Pierce. And that made sense, and that's why they call it, his redemption instead of, redemption, I guess, because it's like, it's redemption is subjective. Klaus reached, what Elijah feels was his redemption, and that's pretty much where the series started. A lot of people in the beginning of when the show was announced, like somewhere in like February of 2013, people thought it was going to be TVD's version of Angel. Problem was, Klaus was still basically a full-blown villain on the Vampire Diaries at the time, and there was only like probably 8 or 9 episodes left in that season. Everybody's like, there's no way you can redeem Klaus right now. How the hell do you do that? Well, eventually, he goes on to his own series. It's not no redemption story from the start. In the end, it feels like, especially these last 2 seasons, it feels like he's, redeemed. Even these last 3 seasons, it feels like he's been not trying to redeem himself, but trying to do the right thing. And that's not what he'd do, come the end of, season 4 of the Vampire Diaries. He was still doing selfish stuff. He was still doing all this. And then, come the first season of the originals, though, he daggers Elijah and all that, and he's really still an anti-villain in the first season of the originals. He goes on to, kind of be the same thing in season 2. He bounces between that and an anti-hero, and eventually in season 3 he becomes kind of the anti-hero that we all wanted him to be. And then that continues to season 4, and then season 5 he's sort of the same way. And in the very end, he kind of tries to be a hero, not in the sense to random people or anything like that, but to his daughter and all that, he does. And I kind of already harped on, Klaus's redemption and how much it means to the series in the other videos. So what I'm trying to say is this show succeeded at what it wanted to do and what it set out to do from the start. what the show did not set out from the start to tell the story, the love story of Haley and Elijah. I know a lot of people don't like that. I enjoy Haley and Elijah myself. They weren't the main characters. They weren't the leads of the show. The lead of the show is Joseph Morgan. It was Klaus's story. This whole thing was built on his history with New Orleans. His bond with Marcel, his bond with Elijah and Rebecca, and his daughter. So it all centers around him, and in my opinion, where they succeeded with the final season and the finale was with him. So in a sense, they did, they did it right. There's just certain stuff where they didn't, piece it all together quite properly. And I think a lot of people, mistake that for being, trash or terrible, like, oh, this isn't the originals I started watching. Well, the originals you started watching didn't have Elijah, and the originals you were watching on The Vampire Diaries are the originals that started this show. And, Haley wasn't a fixture to any of them, besides Elijah making googly eyes. Klaus was damn near ready to kill her. Nobody else cared. I think that progression is awesome, but the show started from Klaus, and then Elijah and Rebecca, and then it spread down to all these other characters, to this new universe. I think probably my most major gripe with the finale, and that I can understand people having, is that there wasn't a lot of stories finished in that we should have seen in the last, I'd say, 3 episodes, which means I don't really know how you could have also started it. I think the right way to start the season would have been you would have had to cut Haley's kidnapping plot in half, in my opinion. I think her death should have been done by episode 3 or 4. I think it was like 5 or 6, but 3 or 4. I liked Klaus and Marcel interrogating New Orleans, but in a 13 episode season of your final season, with a lot of stuff to wrap up, that it really wasn't smart to do 6 or 7 episodes of straight. We have to find Haley. It should have been, especially with they did take the proper episodes to kind of mourn. In my opinion, they took 2 or 3 episodes to mourn, but then that only leaves you 3 episodes left in the season of the final season, and you have to wrap up several stories of all these characters and all their dynamics together, and they kind of didn't do that. So when you think about it, in a sense, they didn't get done what they could have. I think that doesn't help the show at all. I think that doesn't help its case. But a lot of people's cases aren't helped with their complaints anyway, because you got people complaining left and right about Rebecca's ending and Cole's ending, and where the hell was Davina in the series finale. I would have liked to have Davina, in more than one episode. But if we're being dead honest, the episode showed who they should have showed anyway, the family. And Davina's part of the family, obviously, but I wouldn't even have had Keelan in there, to be honest. I would have had them all facing the threat by themselves, really putting to bed the original's dynamics with each other. And I think I mentioned in my review of the episode, the pointless plot with Vincent with Freya and Keelan was dumb. We could have ended his story so much better. He's been a main fixture since season 2. If you're gonna put him in there where he has something to say with the people that started his characters. With Marcel and Freya, obviously Marcel, Freya, and even Elijah, who he feuded with tough in season 4 or whatever it was. Why are we doing? I don't know why we didn't do a lot of that. The big thing I think people are not taking from this finale is the ending. Klaus and Elijah die. I've seen a lot of people point, what was the point of building out Klaus and Caroline if they weren't going to be together in the end? Because this is the same world where, Steph and Salvatore on the other show, not only lost the love of his life to her, the girl he was in love with, to his brother who did all the terrible things and got the happy ending, and he didn't get nothing, and Stefan sacrificed himself for a dude that stalked and tortured him for however long, and and Bonnie's him and Bonnie's friendship was justified. Him sacrificing himself to apologize to Bonnie is justified to me. Enzo, not really. So like the whole thing is, you've seen a character pretty much get screwed up on the other show, and he still died. You should be grateful that almost all these characters on this show didn't die. But a big fixture of them did. Pretty much the three of the leads. Klaus, Elijah, and Haley. And I think Haley's death was not done much justice. I think she died. She did die taking down Greta, but she also died like in this. We didn't see much of her. There wasn't this big storyline, and while we've seen visually, because of how good Joseph Morgan is, how much she meant to Klaus and Elijah, and how good Danielle Gillies is, how much she meant to Elijah, I feel like we didn't get enough of her dynamics with the rest of the characters. When she was missing, what about her dynamic with Rebecca? What about her dynamic with Freya? What about her dynamic with even like some flashbacks of her and Hope would have helped a little bit more. And especially Klaus. I love the episode with the Klaus and Haley flashbacks. Those were amazing, and they made sense, and they gave so much more depth to him and Haley's relationship and Hope and all. Oh, it was so good. And even the flashback with her and Elijah, memoryless Elijah, it all really helped, and I think we didn't get enough of that with all the characters this season, like Klaus and Rebecca, Elijah and Rebecca, Cole and Rebecca, Cole and Elijah, Cole and Klaus, Marcel and everybody. Like, what the hell were we doing with the dynamics and the history of these characters with each other? And that's my main gripe. But I don't see that as like this big complaint, like people are complaining about Klaus and Caroline being built up, people are complaining about Elijah and Haley being built up. While I do think they kind of teased and baited and didn't really pay off the whole Elijah and Haley holding a dance for each other thing, I think you probably should have been able to see that. They built that up enough to where it should have been a thing. Besides that, though, besides that, the ending was still damn good. Them disintegrating together was, fine to me. It really doesn't feel like... I would have liked to see that dance too, but then what do you show of Klaus? Where does Klaus go, Is he watching over Hope or something like that? Then people would have just complained that they ended the show on, Hope going off to Legacies, and would have just called it more promotion for Legacies and complained even more. You really couldn't have won in this series finale, just like the TVD series finale, I keep comparing it to that, but even with, Stefan dying, Stefan was my favorite character on that show. Him dying, there's people out there that just say, he didn't deserve it, he got screwed in the end. Yeah, but he also went out with, the character consistency at least. He was a martyr, he died, and it made sense. And in that sense, everybody threw him a funeral, even though just like this series final season, a lot of the dynamics weren't resolved and put to rest, but he's still went out with a plausible ending, and that's how Klaus and Elijah went out with. To me was the plausible ending for both of them. They should have really delved into Klaus and Marcel's relationship. They should have really shown that dance with Elijah and Haley. I would have even liked to see I wouldn't mind if they shown that final shot of the series with, Klaus, meeting up with Haley after he died, as well, because I just think they harped a lot on the first half of the season, on him and Haley's relationship, and in that huge funeral episode was probably one of the most emotional hours of the originals I've ever seen. And Joseph Morgan's, that guy is so good, but to see, I think them reuniting and them reuniting and then them watching Over Hope would have been a great ending to me. Uh, Besides the ending with Klaus and Elijah, I think, or all three of them watching Over Hope would have been a great ending to me. I mean, that might have been too sappy, and it might have, gone straight into legacies, and people would have hated it. But I think it might have made sense. Besides that, the backlash is a little unwarranted to me. I don't think it's I don't think it's a huge like super issue to where people just should flip out every time they don't get what they want exactly in the series finale. But I also don't feel like these people should. I don't think fans should dictate how a show goes. For anybody that doesn't know my stance, fans do help make a show, but the creators and the actors and stuff put it out there. So, they're going to end the story how they want. They're going to end the story how they feel. It's not our place as fans to decide, who's doing this, it's not we don't decide. It's not our choice. I don't think it should be our choice. I think we got what we got, and that was the story we've been told. You can't really, you can write a fan fiction or something like that, but you can't change what you saw on screen. And, that's just how I feel about the entire, backlash with the original series finale. Like I said, eventually, sometime I'm going to get out that episode, that the originals. It's not going to be like a series review, but it's going to be evaluating how the series ended and its problems, and being kind of brutally honest. And but it won't. I'm not going to tear it apart or anything, but it would be great to talk about the originals and how it takes its place in history on television and stuff. But I'll do that some other time. This is TA Media. I'm out. I'll see you guys in the next one.